My name is Brianna Hudson. I'm 29 years old, and until that night, I thought I knew exactly who I was going to marry. The dinner that shattered that illusion was supposed to be a celebration Cedric's parents' 30th wedding anniversary. The restaurant was one of those dimly lit places where laughter bounces off wine glasses and everyone tries to talk louder than the piano. I remember straightening his tie in the car, brushing a crumb from his blazer, the kind of small gestures women do when they're still in love. He smiled back then, that charming, camera-ready grin I used to believe in. By the end of the night, I'd realize it wasn't charm. It was performance. Cedric's family filled 2 long tables, cousins, siblings, aunts, and that one uncle who never stopped bragging about his investments. Everyone was buzzing about someone's new Tesla, a cousin's Bali vacation, a promotion at some marketing firm. Then Cedric's aunt turned to me and asked politely, "So, Brianna, what do you do again?" Before I could answer, Cedric laughed. Not the kind laugh the other one, the sharp, mocking laugh that makes the air go still. "Oh, she's fine," he said. "But honestly, she's just a daddy's little girl. Can't make a single decision without calling him first. Every Sunday, like clockwork, she drives 40 minutes just to have lunch with her dad. He sneezes, she drives over to bring him soup." His family chuckled small, uncertain sounds that filled the silence he'd created. My smile froze. I could feel my ears burn, the blood pulsing hot against my temples. I opened my mouth, but he kept going. "I mean, it's cute, right?" he added, glancing around the table for validation. "I'm marrying a woman who still thinks her dad's approval is the most important thing in her life." Cedric's brother Michael snorted into his drink. "Better get used to sharing her, man." The laughter this time was louder. Cedric leaned back in his chair, proud of himself. "Don't worry," he said to his brother. "Once we're married, and I'm in charge of the finances, I'll make sure Daddy Hudson gets fewer visits. You know, normal boundaries." That was it. The moment the air turned cold. My fork slipped from my fingers and clinked against the plate. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just hollow, like the sound had sucked all the warmth out of the room. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't recognize the man sitting beside me. This was the same man I'd supported for years, the same man living rent-free in the apartment I paid for driving the car I helped buy. And here he was, publicly mocking the one bond that meant everything to me. I took a sip of water just to steady my hand. "You're right," I said quietly. Cedric smirked. "See, she admits it." I nodded, pushing back my chair. "You're absolutely right, Cedric. Daddy's little girl shouldn't marry a man who resents her father." The laughter died instantly. I placed my napkin gently beside my plate, turned to his parents and said, "Thank you for dinner. Happy anniversary." Then I walked out. The night air outside was sharp and wet with mist. My heels clicked against the pavement, as if trying to catch up with the heartbeat in my chest. For a second, I stood beside my car, staring at the restaurant door, half expecting him to come running after me. He didn't. Instead, my phone buzzed. "Cedric, baby, come back?" I was joking. Then another. "You're embarrassing me. Then, if you leave, we're done." I unlocked my car, my fingers trembling, wrote back one sentence. "We're already done." And I drove. My father's porch light was still on when I pulled into the driveway. It was almost 9:00 p.m., and he opened the door before I even reached it, still in his slippers, holding a mug of tea. "Brianna, you okay?" The sound of his voice, steady, familiar, broke something inside me. I shook my head, and the tears came before I could stop them. He didn't ask questions, just led me inside, sat me down at the kitchen table, and handed me the mug. Chamomile with honey. Always honey. It wasn't until the steam fogged my glasses that I finally said it out loud. "He humiliated me, Dad, in front of everyone." My father's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He just waited. He said, "I'm a daddy's little girl, that once we're married, he'd be in charge of the money, and you'd only see me on holidays." Silence, then a long, low breath. "I never liked him," Dad said, finally calm but firm. "But you seemed happy, so I stayed out of it." I let out a broken laugh. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because sometimes," he said, "people need to see the truth themselves. You saw it tonight." I didn't sleep much. The guest room still smelled faintly of my old perfume from when I used to live there, lavender and coffee. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and my own pulse. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, the fog in my head cleared. When morning came, I brewed coffee, packed my bag, and drove to the apartment Cedric and I shared. He was at his yoga class. I'd memorized his schedule long ago. I moved methodically, clothes, laptop documents, my grandmother's jewelry. The furniture all mine. Technically, I left behind. I wanted a clean break, not trophies. except the 65-inch OLED TV I'd bought last Christmas. That came with me. Petty, maybe, but fair. I left a note on the counter written in my neatest handwriting. Rent's paid till the end of the month. Utilities will be canceled Friday. The rest is yours to figure out. Brianna. When I closed the apartment door, I didn't look back. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't leaving someone to return home. I was just leaving. That evening, I sat across from my father again, eating dinner in silence. He didn't ask what I'd done. He could see it in my eyes. He only said one thing before we turned on the news. Good. Some doors need to stay closed, Brianna, even if you loved what was behind them. I nodded, the fork heavy in my hand, because deep down I already knew this wasn't the end of Cedric. It was just the start of the fallout. The morning after I left, Cedric felt eerily calm, like the world hadn't caught up with the storm yet. I woke up in my childhood room, the one with pale blue walls, and an old corkboard still pinned with college photos. It was strange how the room hadn't changed, but I had. The woman staring at herself in the mirror wasn't the same one who used to practice job interviews in this space. Dad was already up reading the paper. The smell of coffee and fried eggs drifted from the kitchen. He looked up when I came in, his face unreadable. Morning, he said. Morning, I replied, sitting down across from him. He slid a mug toward me. Black coffee, no sugar. What's your plan? I didn't answer right away. My throat was tight. I'm taking today off, I finally said. Then I'll get my stuff from the apartment. Cedric has yoga classes till noon. I'll be gone before he's back. Dad nodded slowly. You sure you don't want me there? I gave a small smile. I think I need to do this myself. He hesitated, then reached across the table and covered my hand with his. Proud of you, kiddo. By 10 a.m., I was standing in the apartment doorway with an empty suitcase and a kind of detached focus I didn't recognize. Everything looked staged. The apartment was spotless, candles, unlit yoga mat rolled neatly in the corner. Our framed engagement photo still hung on the wall, my smile too bright, his hand too tight on my shoulder. I pulled it down. Packing was faster than I expected. My life fit into 5 boxes and a suitcase. It startled me realizing how little of this space was actually mine. The furniture, the decor, the art, all things I bought, but he approved. It was always, let's keep it minimal, or that doesn't fit our aesthetic. I didn't realize until then that our aesthetic had always meant his control. Still, I didn't take revenge. I wasn't going to destroy his things or leave notes full of rage. No. My silence would be louder than any argument. I left one small envelope on the kitchen counter with the apartment key inside. Rent's paid till the end of the month. Power and internet will be canceled Friday. Good luck, Cedric. I thought that would be the end of it. He must have come home earlier than usual because by 1:00 p.m., my phone started vibrating nonstop. 10 missed calls. 16 unread messages. Cedric. Where are you, Cedric? This is ridiculous. Cedric. You can't just leave. We need to talk. Cedric. I was joking. You're overreacting. Cedric. You're acting like a child right now. That last one almost made me laugh. The irony was perfect. I turned off my phone. When I turned it back on that evening, he'd escalated. Cedric. You can't abandon me. That's financial abuse, Brianna. Financial abuse. From the man who hadn't paid a single month of rent in over 2 years. I exhaled, a hollow laugh escaping my throat. I didn't reply. But the calls didn't stop. The next morning, I worked from home in Dad's study, the same desk where I'd done high school homework. By noon, Cedric had called from 3 different numbers. Then a message from an unknown contact. Chloe, Brianna, it's me. You need to talk to Cedric. He's not okay. I stared at the text for a full minute. Then I typed back, me. He's fine. He's just realizing actions have consequences, Chloe. He hasn't eaten. He's crying all day. You were together for years. How can you be this cold? Me, ask him how cold he was when he called me a child in front of 20 people, Chloe. He didn't mean it. You know how he talks when he's nervous. Me. Then maybe he should learn to be quiet. She didn't reply again. That night, Dad and I had dinner in the living room. The TV was on low-volume news murmuring in the background. He broke the silence first. He's not going to stop, is he? I shook my head. Probably not. He set down his fork, his gaze steady. Then you have to stop answering. You don't owe him an audience. I nodded, swallowing hard. Dad wasn't much for long speeches, but that sentence landed like a command, and I followed it. By Thursday, Cedric's frustration turned to panic. He couldn't reach me, couldn't guilt me, couldn't perform his remorse. That's when he called Dad. I was upstairs when I heard the phone ring. I froze, listening to my father's tone, calm, measured, dangerous. Yes, this is Mr. Hudson. Pause. I see. And you're calling because... Another pause. Then, son, if you loved her, you'd leave her alone. She's home. She's safe. That's all you need to know. Click. Dad hung up, eyes flicking up the stairs. He won't bother me again. I didn't ask what was said between them. I didn't need to. Friday morning, I decided to end it my way, not with another argument, but with a boundary. I sent one final message. Cedric, I wish you peace, but this conversation is over. Please don't contact me again. Then I blocked his number. It felt anticlimactic at first, like a quiet after an earthquake. But later that night, sitting by the window with a glass of wine, I realized something. The silence wasn't empty, it was clean. Still beneath that calm, a small thread of unease pulled at me, because Cedric had never been the kind of man to lose quietly. And in the distance, that thread was about to tighten. The quiet lasted exactly 3 days. Then, as if on cue, chaos found its way back. It started with a call from an unknown number while I was in a meeting. I ignored it. Then another. Then a third. Finally, a voicemail. Brianna, it's Francis Cedric's mom. Please call me back, sweetheart. I just want to talk. Her tone was soft, almost maternal, but beneath it, I could hear something else, fear wrapped in politeness. I didn't call her back. That evening, Dad was reading in the living room when he said without looking up, "She called here too." I froze. Francis. He nodded. Said she wanted to clear up a misunderstanding. And I told her misunderstandings don't usually involve public humiliation. I smiled. Good answer. He turned a page. You raised me right. Cedric's messages started leaking through other channels. Mutual friends, work, acquaintances, even LinkedIn. A new tone. Remorseful, desperate, righteous. He'd written a long public post carefully worded sentimental enough to make him look like the heartbroken fiancé. Sometimes love gets complicated when family boundaries aren't respected. I still care deeply for Brianna, but I can't compete with her father. I just wanted a healthy marriage. I read it twice, bile rising in my throat. The man who once mocked me for loving my only parent was now weaponizing that love to make me look unstable. The comments were full of sympathy. Stay strong, bro. She'll realize what she lost. No woman should let her dad control her relationship. Every word was a knife, twisting a little deeper. I shut my laptop and sat in the dark. Dad came in, sensing it instantly. What happened, I told him. Every word. Every lie. He listened quietly, then reached for the remote and turned off the lamp. Let them talk, he said. People forget faster than you think, but don't you ever let them rewrite your story. Saturday morning, I got another surprise, not from Cedric this time, but from my HR department. They'd received a character inquiry from a company called Sunlight Studios. Apparently, Cedric had applied there and listed me as a reference. Unbelievable, I muttered under my breath. The HR manager's voice was careful. We didn't respond, of course. But, do you want to make an official note in your file in case he tries again? Yes, I said firmly. Please do. The audacity almost impressed me. Almost. That night, while scrolling through my phone, I found an email notification, subject cease financial contact. It was from Cedric. He'd written a paragraph accusing me of abandoning joint financial commitments and withdrawing funds without mutual consent. He even mentioned the wedding deposits. I'd paid nearly all of them, but sure mutual consent. My chest ached with a mix of anger and disbelief. The same man who laughed about controlling our money now claimed financial abuse. For the first time, I considered calling a lawyer. Instead, I opened my notes app and started documenting everything. Dates of messages, screenshots of posts, every voicemail, every email. If he wanted to turn this into a story, I'd make sure I had the receipts. By Sunday, Cedric shifted tactics. Chloe texted again, this time sounding different. Chloe. He's been posting about you all weekend. You should say something. Me. No. I'm done giving him attention. Chloe. People are believing him, Brianna. He's saying you manipulated him, that you're obsessed with your dad. Me. Let them believe what they want. I'm not competing with his lies. Then she sent one last message, Chloe. He's spiraling. Please don't push him further. Something about that phrasing made me pause. It was manipulative, but familiar. That was Cedric's language spoken through someone else's mouth. I didn't reply. Tuesday morning, I walked into my office and froze. Cedric was standing in the lobby. He was thin or pale, his posture rehearsed the look of someone playing victim for an audience. Brianna, he said, stepping forward, we need to talk. I took a step back. You shouldn't be here. Please, just 5 minutes. You owe me that. I looked at the security guard who was already approaching. No, I said, I don't owe you anything. The guard escorted him out while he shouted, You can't just erase 3 years. Brianna. But I already had. That night I sat in my father's kitchen again, the same table, same tea, same silence between us. I think he's unraveling, I said quietly. Dad nodded slowly. He's not unraveling. He's just losing control. People like that mistake control for love. I stirred my tea. He listed me as a reference dad. That earned a raised eyebrow. Bold move for someone so enlightened. I laughed softly more from exhaustion than humor. He's posting everywhere, making me out to be some manipulative daughter. Dad sighed. Then don't read it. I can't help it. Then learn to. Because this is the part where silence is your weapon. He said it so simply it sounded like a fact. And maybe it was. Later that night, as I lay in bed scrolling through Cedric's now private social media, I noticed something strange. A small comment beneath one of his posts written by his mother. Son, maybe you should stop talking about this online. It had one like from Cedric himself. Something told me she'd finally started to see it too. But for Cedric, it was too late. The mask had already cracked, and soon everyone would see who he really was. For the first time in months, I woke up without a pit in my stomach. The sun filtered through the curtains of my father's house, and for a brief, perfect moment, I forgot there'd ever been a Cedric Morrison. But peace I was learning came with a price. By noon, my inbox pinged with an email from our old wedding caterer, subject line, cancellation confirmation. My heart skipped. I hadn't canceled anything yet. When I opened it, my stomach twisted. Dear Ms. Hudson, this is to confirm that your event deposit has been withdrawn and reallocated. Please contact us if you'd like to change details for the Morrison family celebration. Morrison family celebration. Cedric had beaten me to it, withdrawn the deposit, changed the event name, and tried to repurpose the funds. The audacity wasn't shocking anymore, it was exhausting. I called immediately. Hi, this is Brianna Hudson. I paid that deposit. The manager was polite but confused. Mr. Morrison told us you agreed to transfer it. I swallowed my anger. Did he also tell you whose card it came from? Pause. Then a quiet, I'll look into that for you, ma'am. When I hung up, my father was standing by the door, drying his hands with a dish towel. Problem, he asked. I nodded. He's trying to use our wedding money for his own event. Dad's brow furrowed. Do you want me to call someone? I smiled faintly. No, Dad. I've got this one. I spent the next 2 hours calling the venue, the photographer, the caterer, everyone who had a check with my name on it. Each conversation felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By the end, every deposit was either refunded or frozen until documentation was provided. When the caterer offered to credit the amount toward another event, I didn't hesitate. Use it for my father's 63rd birthday next month, I said. He looked confused but amused. Happy to, ma'am. It wasn't revenge, it was closure, poetic, delicious closure. That evening, Cedric called from an unknown number. I didn't answer. He tried again, and again. Finally, I picked up my voice steady. You have 1 minute. Brianna. You stole our wedding money. I withdrew my money. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? You mean like being mocked by your fiancé in front of his family? Silence. Then his tone turned sharp, desperate. You're doing this to punish me. No, I'm doing this to end you in my life. There was a pause. Then he said something that made me shiver. You'll regret this. You're making me look like a monster, I smiled coldly. You don't need my help for that. And I hung up. The next morning, he posted again. This time, it was a full essay on his Instagram, a tragic story of heartbreak and financial manipulation. He claimed I'd controlled his income, restricted his independence, and weaponized family loyalty. I didn't respond. But people I hadn't spoken to in years started messaging me. High school friends, old coworkers, all forwarding his posts, asking, Is this about you? It was surreal watching a man rewrite our history in real time, one emotional paragraph at a time. Each post was a mirror, distorted, ugly, desperate. I considered responding. Then I remembered Dad's words, silence is your weapon. So I said nothing. But Cedric wasn't done. He needed an audience, and when I stopped giving him one, he built a new one. A week later, Chloe texted again. Chloe, you should see what he's doing. Check his GoFundMe. I hesitated, then I looked. Title, Help Me Rebuild After Financial Abuse. Goal, $10,000. Description: I was engaged to a woman who manipulated me into financial dependency, then left me penniless and humiliated. I just want a chance to start over. My hands shook, but not from sadness, from disbelief. He'd included a photo of us from our engagement shoot, my arm around him smiling. He'd cropped out my face, leaving only his lit like a martyr. I laughed, out loud. It was dark and bitter, but real. The donations $250, $200 from his mother, $50 from an aunt. That was all. Later that night, I sat with Dad watching an old movie. Halfway through, he looked over and said, "You seem lighter." I shrugged. Maybe I'm just done being angry. He nodded thoughtfully. "You're not done. You're growing." We clinked our glasses, his beer, my wine. For the first time, I realized freedom wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fireworks or fresh starts. It was paperwork boundaries, silence, and long nights of doubt. But it was mine. Before bed, I opened Cedric's page one last time. He'd posted another update. "She won't even talk to me. She's cold, heartless, after all I did for her." I stared at those words and finally smiled. He still didn't get it. I wasn't cold. I was done being burned. 2. Sundays later, the doorbell rang, just as Dad and I were setting the table for lunch. He was slicing roast chicken. I was arranging bowls of salad. The air smelled like thyme and quiet, a peace I'd fought hard to earn. But the knock that followed wasn't gentle. It was sharp, impatient, familiar. Dad froze mid-motion. "You expecting someone?" I shook my head. "No." The bell rang again. When I opened the door, the breath caught in my throat. Cedric stood on the porch, suit jacket, wrinkled eyes sunken from lack of sleep. And he wasn't alone. Behind him were his mother Frances, his brother Michael, and his father Patrick, the full Morrison delegation. My heart dropped. Cedric gave a small, rehearsed smile. "Brianna, can we talk? I didn't move. This isn't a good time." His mother stepped forward, voice dripping with practiced sympathy. "Please, dear. Cedric's been through so much. We just want to make things right." Dad appeared behind me. "You've got 30 seconds. Cedric took a deep breath, eyes flicking between me and my father. "Brianna, I came to apologize. I was stupid that night. I didn't mean what I said." I crossed my arms. "Which part? The part where you mocked me in front of your family, or the part where you bragged about controlling my money?" "I was drinking," he said quickly, showing off. "You had one glass of wine," I replied. Michael, his brother, chuckled under his breath. "Come on, Brianna. Every couple jokes like that." Dad's voice cut in calm, but razor sharp. "Do you joke about humiliating the people you love? In my house, we call that cruelty." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Cedric's father, Patrick, cleared his throat. "Let's all take a breath. We came here to find a solution." "There is no solution," I said evenly. "This is over." Cedric's composure cracked. "You can't throw away 3 years over one mistake." I stepped forward, eyes level with his. "It wasn't one mistake, Cedric. It was a revelation. You showed me who you are." Frances reached out, her tone turning desperate. "Honey, you loved him. Love forgives." I turned to her, my voice steady. "Love doesn't humiliate. It doesn't mock grief. And it doesn't fear family." Her mouth opened, then closed. Dad crossed his arms beside me, silent, steady, immovable. Cedric's eyes darted toward him, frustration rising. "This is what I mean. You still hide behind him." I almost laughed. "No, Cedric. I'm standing beside him. There's a difference." Then came the words I'd been expecting, the line he'd rehearsed, no doubt. "What would it take for you to come back?" "Counseling, therapy. I'll do anything." I hesitated, not out of confusion, but disbelief. "Anything?" I asked quietly. He nodded eagerly, then disappear. His face went blank. Frances gasped. "How dare you speak to him like that?" Dad stepped forward, voice low but firm. "You brought this circus to my home. You don't get to act offended now." Michael muttered something about toxic women under his breath. I turned to him sharply. "You think women are toxic because they stop letting you treat them like toys." That shut him up. For a moment, the scene felt surreal. 4 people on my porch. Faces twisted by anger, guilt, or denial. All trying to pull me back into the story I'd already left. I took a step back and said, "You all need to leave, right now." Cedric shook his head, voice breaking. "You're ruining my life." "No, Cedric," I said softly. "You did that when you mocked me for loving the only parent I have left." My father's voice came then, quiet but powerful. "Young man," he said, "you should thank her for walking away. She's saving you from a marriage you're not ready for." Cedric's jaw clenched. I am ready. Dad met his gaze without blinking. Then you'd have acted like a man, that night, not a boy looking for applause. Cedric's father shifted uncomfortably. Even Francis looked away. That's when the dam finally broke. Cedric's voice cracked as he shouted, "You've turned her against me!" Dad didn't even flinch. She doesn't need me for that. You did it yourself. Something inside me clicked. Not anger, not triumph, but relief. The kind that comes from finally watching a storm exhaust itself. I opened the door wider, gesturing toward the driveway. Go home, Cedric. He looked at me for a long, heavy moment, eyes red pride dissolving, then turned to leave. His mother followed, muttering about ungrateful daughters. Michael rolled his eyes and shoved his hands in his pockets. But Patrick, Cedric's father, paused at the bottom of the steps. He looked at Dad, then at me, and said quietly, "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing." Then they left. When the door closed, the silence felt almost sacred. Dad exhaled, leaning against the counter. You okay? I nodded, though my hands trembled. I think so. He gave me a small smile. You were calm. I wasn't calm, I said. I was finished. He chuckled. That's even better. We sat down to lunch after that. The food was cold, but neither of us cared. It was the most peaceful meal I'd had in months. That night, as I lay in bed, the scene replayed in my head, the porch, the faces, the accusations. But the memory that stuck wasn't Cedric's anger. It was my father's words. She's saving you from a marriage you're not ready for. For years, I'd thought love meant staying. That night, I learned that sometimes love means walking away before you lose yourself completely. And for the first time, I didn't feel like Daddy's little girl. I felt like the woman he raised me to be. The next few weeks passed like quiet waves, steady cleansing, but sometimes pulling at old wounds when I least expected it. Cedric faded from my direct orbit, but not from the background noise. I still caught glimpses of a mutual friend's story here, a forwarded screenshot there, enough to remind me that he was still talking, still performing, still trying to shape the ending of a story he no longer belonged to. But for once, I wasn't watching. I was living. Dad and I turned the basement into my small apartment, our little project of healing disguised as renovation. We stripped the old wallpaper, painted the walls a pale cream, installed a kitchenette. Every nail I hammered in, every brushstroke I painted, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd left behind somewhere in that old apartment with Cedric. Sometimes I caught Dad watching me quietly, the same look he used to give Mom when she'd be rearranging furniture at midnight, just to make the room feel lighter. On one of those nights, I paused and asked, "You ever think I'm turning into her?" He smiled without looking up from his screwdriver. "If you mean strong enough to rebuild a life from rubble, then yeah, you are." I blinked hard, then laughed to hide the tears. Meanwhile, Cedric's story was unraveling faster than I could have imagined. Frances called Dad one evening. He didn't answer, but her voicemail was loud enough for both of us to hear. She needs to stop ignoring him. He's losing everything. He lost his teaching job because he keeps crying in front of clients. You're ruining his career. Do you understand that? Dad deleted it. That's not your burden, he said simply. But I couldn't help checking one last time. His GoFundMe was still up, but the comments had turned brutal. People were catching on, friends questioning details, someone posting, "Didn't she pay for your car, though?" His narrative was crumbling, one exposed lie at a time. I didn't feel joy, just release. A few weeks later, life offered me a twist I didn't see coming. Dad had knee surgery scheduled, an old injury from his construction days. I took time off work to stay at the hospital with him. It was there, in that cold-smelling ward, that I met Liam. He was one of the nurses, mid-30s, calm voice, steady hands. Not the kind of man who filled a room with noise, but with presence. He smiled the first day we met. "You're Brianna, right? Mr. Hudson's daughter." "Yeah," I said, half asleep from a night on the visitor's couch. He laughed softly. "He brags about you. Said you fixed his entire basement yourself. Only half. The other half is chaos. I like chaos," he said with a grin. "It's honest." There was something disarming about him. No hidden agenda, no need to dominate a conversation, no pretending. Just a quiet warmth that felt safe. When Dad was discharged, Liam walked us to the car. "He'll heal faster if he listens," Liam said. Dad snorted. "Good luck convincing me of that." Liam winked at me. "Then maybe you can." Over the next few weeks, Liam called occasionally to check on Dad's recovery. Those calls somehow turned into longer talks about workbooks, music. We'd stay on the phone past midnight, laughing over stories neither of us had planned to share. One Sunday, he joined us for lunch. He brought pie homemade slightly burnt at the edges and helped Dad fix a loose kitchen cabinet afterward. When I offered him coffee, he smiled and said, "You two have a beautiful bond. Most people my age don't even call their parents anymore." I looked down embarrassed. "Some people think it's unhealthy." His brow furrowed. "Then those people have never known real loyalty." My chest tightened, the words hitting somewhere tender. Dad, pretending not to eavesdrop, muttered, "Finally someone with sense." Meanwhile, the outside world was shifting. Cedric's cousin Bradley, the same one who'd bragged about Bali that night at dinner, had his own reckoning. His girlfriend dumped him, and the story somehow made its way to me through mutual friends. Apparently, she'd seen how Cedric treated me that night and told Bradley, "You're just like him. I'm not wasting years waiting for you to change." The irony was poetic. The dominoes were falling, not because I pushed them, but because truth has a way of balancing its own scales. 2 months after the dinner, the basement apartment was finished. Dad and I stood in the doorway admiring the space, soft lighting, clean walls, a small framed photo of Mom on the shelf. "You did good, kid," Dad said quietly. "So did you." He chuckled. "I just handed you tools. You built the rest." That night, when he went to bed, I sat alone in my new space, a glass of wine in hand. Liam's text glowing softly on my phone screen. "You okay? I know. Today must feel big." I typed back. "It does, but it feels right too." I'd lost count of the times people told me healing was linear. It wasn't. It came in waves, some gentle, some rough enough to knock the air out of me. But this time, when the wave receded, I was still standing. The world was quieter now. No voicemails, no shouting, no manipulation disguised as love. Just a steady hum of peace. And for the first time in a long while, hope. 6 months. That's how long it took for life to finally feel mine again. 6 months since the dinner. The walk out, the noise. 6 months since I stopped apologizing for being someone who loves deeply, for being Daddy's little girl. Now I was just Brianna Hudson. No longer someone's fiancé, no longer someone's emotional punching bag, no longer someone's project to fix. Just me. I'd finally moved out of Dad's house and into my own apartment, a small 2-bedroom, overlooking the city park. The kind of place that smelled like morning light and freedom. Dad helped me carry boxes that weekend, refusing to let the movers touch his good arm. "You sure you'll be okay here alone?" he asked, handing me a screwdriver like it was a torch he was passing on. I smiled. "I'm not alone, Dad. I'm home." He nodded, proud but hesitant, his eyes misting over. "You'll still come for Sunday lunch, right? Wouldn't miss it." He chuckled. "Good, because I already told the neighbors my daughter visits every week." Typical dad love wrapped in quiet teasing. The first Sunday in my new place, I hosted lunch instead. Dad sat at the table laughing with Liam, who was adjusting the window blinds to let more light in. They got along far too well. I think they both enjoyed making me blush with their harmless jokes. "So," Liam said between bites, "when you said you could cook, I didn't realize you meant actually cook." I raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect?" He grinned. Microwaved leftovers and takeout menus. Dad laughed. "That was her college era. Don't let her fool you. She once burned instant noodles." "Dad boiled all the water out," he added, winking at Liam. True story. We all laughed until our sides hurt, and for a fleeting second I felt something I hadn't felt in years, warmth without fear. Later, after Liam left and the dishes were done, Dad sat quietly on the couch while I packed him leftovers. He looked at me the way fathers do when they want to say something but don't want to push too hard. "You're happy, aren't you?" I paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I really am." He smiled faintly. "Your mom would have liked him." "I think so too," I whispered. For the first time, that didn't hurt to say. That night I sat on my balcony, a cool breeze brushing against my skin. The city lights flickered like distant confessions, and for once none of them belonged to me. My phone buzzed a single message. Unknown number. "I hope you're happy. Cedric." I stared at the screen for a long moment, not because I wanted to reply, but because I didn't need to. Still, I typed one last message. "I am. I hope someday you will be too." Then I hit send and blocked the number. That tiny blue bubble disappeared into silence, and it felt like closing the last page of a book I no longer needed to reread. A month later, we threw Dad's retirement party. 60 guests, catered food, music, laughter, all paid for with the money that once belonged to a wedding that never happened. Dad gave a toast halfway through, holding up his glass. "To my daughter," he said, his voice soft but steady. "The woman who reminds me that walking away from the wrong person isn't losing, it's making space for peace." The room applauded. I fought back tears. When I hugged him afterward, he whispered, "You did good, kid. So did you," I said. You taught me how. Later that night, as the crowd thinned and the music softened, I stepped outside for air. Liam found me there, leaning against the railing. Your dad's toast was something he said. He's always had good timing. He looked at me carefully. So do you. I smiled. You think so, I know so, he said. Then, after a pause, you don't talk about him much anymore, Cedric. Yeah, I shrugged. There's nothing left to say. He was a lesson, not a scar. Liam reached for my hand. Then here's to better lessons. I laughed quietly. You know, for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the next disaster. He squeezed my hand gently. That's because you stopped mistaking storms for passion. His words lingered long after he left that night. Now, when people call me daddy's girl, I don't flinch. Because they're right, I am. The difference is, now I understand what that means. It means loyalty. It means knowing where I came from. It means remembering that love built on control isn't love at all. It's fear in disguise. My father's love taught me strength. Cedric's cruelty taught me boundaries. And somewhere between those two, I found myself. As I sit here tonight, the city humming below my balcony, I open my old messages one last time. Not to reread, but to delete. Each conversation gone, each wound archived, each memory filed under lessons learned. When I close the phone, the screen reflects a faint image of me, tired eyes, steady heart, calm, smile. I whisper it to the night, just loud enough to hear myself believe it. The little girl who needed her father became the woman who finally